Would you do me a big favor? Could you bring me a pen?
Give it busy.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Bermuda's News and Views, Election Edition. And I'm your host, Don Burgess. And we have three candidates from the One Bermuda Alliance to talk about their election platform, a little bit about the last time they were in government. I know most people probably know who you are, but please introduce yourself. Tell us what constituency you're running in, where your polling station is, just to help the voters out, and why people should vote for you.
Yes.
We'll start with you, Pat. Patricia?
I'm having no sound.
Okay. Well, we'll skip to Ben. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. So I'm Ben Smith. I'm running in constituency 31, Southampton West Central. I have been the Shadow Minister of Sport and also the Shadow Minister of National Security. I have been advocating for retail sector in Bermuda to make sure that we're protecting those 3,000 jobs. And I would like to continue to work towards making sure that our youth are encouraged to come back to Bermuda, making sure that our education system is not failing them, and just to continue to figure out a way to get a lot of the nastiness out of politics.
Okay. And where's the polling station?
Mount Zion.
Okay. Opposition leader, Mr. Cannonier.
Hi guys, Craig Cannonier here, opposition leader, Devonshire South Central, constituency number 12. This has been an interesting ride for the One Bermuda Alliance. We are continuing to advocate for those who are vulnerable. We continue to advocate for an economy that, quite frankly, is teetering, that is not meeting the needs of the people of Bermuda. And until we get these things correct, we're going to continue to see the decline and loss of business and jobs, where Bermudians are losing the ability to be able to survive in Bermuda. Our cost of living is high, and we've heard messages from our government in the past. We need to bring that down. And so as we move forward, the One Bermuda Alliance is excited about this election that is coming up. We're looking forward to the platform and implementing all of the ideas that we do have. So as we go forward, this is a great time for us. With us also, we have Pat, who'll be talking about our economy. I'm formerly Minister of, when we were government, Minister of Works and former Premier of Bermuda. And so we're coming with a wealth of opportunity and knowledge here about how things work. We believe in a smaller government, meaning that we don't need the number of constituencies that we do have in order to be effective, and the number of cabinet ministers in order to be effective. We need to start looking how we streamline our costs, but at the same time be effective. So again, this is a opposition leader excited about talking about where we want to take Bermuda.
And where's your polling station?
Our polling station is at Botanical Gardens.
Botanical Gardens. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll get Pat back shortly. I'd like to remind our viewers, if you have a question you would like to ask a candidate, please leave a comment on the stream, and I'll try to get to it before our hour quickly rushes past us. if we can go back to 2012 to 2017 when the OBA was the government, what do you think you got right to show that you are capable of handling the government again?
Yeah, in 2012, the One Bermuda Alliance was hired under a mandate of fixing the economy. The economy was devastated at the time. In fact, a month into our term, we didn't have the funds even to pay civil servants. That was the dire of the situation that we were faced with. And so we needed to get going. We did not waste time in getting to building the infrastructure of Bermuda and getting investment into the island. We did these things well. They speak for themselves. We can talk about the America's Cup. We can talk about St. Regis. We can talk about the airport, Morgan's Point. We can talk about the Lauren and go on and on about the projects that we put in place that put Bermudians back to work. And that was the key. We needed to get Bermudians back to work because the best social program is a job, and we needed Bermuda working. One of the things that we did not move as swiftly as I'd like to have, and it's a lesson learned, was the reform of government. And I believe that that played a major role as we moved forward as a government. We were fixing the economy. We stimulated St. George's, got more money into the corporation in St. George's, which was also teetering on splinters and trying to survive. And so we got ships back there. We got a ferry going back and forth from St. George's. We got revenue from fuel going into the coffers of the corporation. We gave money to the building up of the docks there. And so we built it up and got traffic going there, only to see now that it's returning back to the stage where it's having challenges. So we want to get back into that seat, basically, so we can rejuvenate the economy. But at the exact same time, we recognize that people are looking for reform and reform of government, and we need to get going on that. That's what they are looking for, and we could have done better at.
Okay. I guess
do we have Pat on? Yeah, Pat's back on.
Okay. So we'll just tag onto that, and then we'll go back to Pat and have her introduce herself. Probably if there were the four biggest complaints, and I know that you'll disagree at least with two of them, from 2012 to 2017 when the OBA were the government, were the airport contract, the America's Cup, pathways to status, and Morgan's Point. You know, you might disagree with all four of those. Would you do any of those things differently? If so, what? If not, what do you think you got right about them?
Well, that's a great question. I believe that, listen, we put people to work. So what I do believe is that maybe closer management could have taken place with Morgan's Point. When I say management, oversight as to how it was being managed. But the fault of Morgan's Point does not fall on the government. We guaranteed a Bermudian who's successful in Bermuda, one of the most successful Bermudians that we do have, and in international business. If that isn't somebody that we shouldn't be backing, I don't know who is. And in addition to that, as far as Morgan's Point is concerned, listen, they came up with solutions. It's the current government that turned down the solutions that would have led them to not be in the position that they are in today. And so, you know, we can go back and forth. The airport deal was a great deal when it came to the fact that the taxpayer does not have to pay for the airport. We did not want to burden Bermuda to have to pay for the airport. What a great deal. If someone comes to you and says, and I'll use this example, listen, I want to build a house for you, and I'm going to add some apartments to it so that you can live in it, and the apartments will pay the mortgage for your house. Why would you turn that down? The caveat is well, maybe every so often if a hurricane comes, well, you know, you're going to have to take care of that if a hurricane comes and damage happens to the place. What a great opportunity Bermuda has to not have to pay for this airport when we know that the government, when they were in government, they were looking at the airport that was costing twice as much. And so, yes, we find ourselves in a position where we're having to balance out a fall because of COVID-19, but no one could have predicted that. And there was a force majeure that was in place, contrary to what government has said, and now they're having to come back and say, I'm sorry, well, yeah, there was one. So, you know, it's no different than a hospital. I mean, right now, Bermuda taxpayers are paying $2.5 million every single month. And this was a project done on the PLP government every single month. And I don't hear one of the PLP people complaining about it. but yet we have an airport here that's going to bring in revenue, okay? And that's going to take care of many of those people who work down there. So I can go on and on and on. America's Cup brought 300 million. Unfortunately, there are some who want to cast a black eye on it, but that's politics, right? People need to study these things to understand them for themselves. And when you take a look at these projects, my goodness, they have been a plus. You saw the economy as it improved while these projects were going on. So I don't have any apologies for any of these projects, other than to say, you know, we can pay closer attention. Maybe one or two things could have been tweaked, but that's life, isn't it?
All right. I guess the one question that you didn't ask was pathways to status, and of course, immigration's still a hot issue this time around. How would you address that?
Well, I guess I don't want to monopolize the meeting here, but you know, we have a population problem, Bernice. We have a population problem. If we don't get more people here, we will continue to die as an island, as a country. Bermuda will continue to contract, and less people here means more taxes. So the less people here, the more each one of us has to pay in order to afford a bloated government, a government that is inefficient, and to be able to meet out the needs of the most vulnerable. This is a challenge. And so now we have a government who's basically PLP saying, well, you know, maybe we should get some more people here on the 1-year contract, acknowledging the fact that we need more people here. Now, let's not get the message wrong, Bernice. We need Bermudians to come back, and we need foreigners to invest in Bermuda. That's what we are saying. Without the investment, why would you come home? What we're seeing right now is there's no investment in Bermuda, so people are leaving. And you want to know who's leaving? Not just foreigners, you know, not just expats, Bermudians. And this government has not fixed it. We gotta fix it.
Okay. Now, Pat, hopefully everything's fixed at your end.
Yes, I believe it.
So just introduce yourself, tell us what constituency you're running in, where your polling station is, and why people in your constituency should vote for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Don. We appreciate the opportunity to be here, and good afternoon, Bermuda. I am Pat Gordon Pamplin. I'm running now in constituency 11, Devonshire East. The polling station will be at Christchurch in Devonshire, and that's on Thursday, the 1st of October. And I remind everybody that it is from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. and that one must remember to bring along with you your government-issued ID, Bermuda government-issued ID, as well as your mask. So that is the basis. Why should people vote for me? I believe that I've had 22 years of experience in the parliamentary process. I believe that I bring with me not just the experience, but I believe that I bring a level head. I bring a certain level of the ability to reach across the aisle and to work along with the other side of the aisle for the better good of Bermuda. I believe that from an economic perspective, I'm an accountant by profession, albeit a retired one at this point. But I think that it's important for us to be able to keep an eye on our finances and also to have a specific concern for our seniors. When I say finances, it's important that we look at the economy. And I believe, as my leader has said a few minutes ago, that our economy is in free fall. We have had serious problems. It has not been as a result of COVID-19, which has exacerbated the problems that we have, but it was prior to that, from 2017 through early 2020, when the economy was in free fall, primarily because there was very little confidence in the Burt administration. And as a result of that, when business confidence wanes, investment is minimized, and as a result, we don't have the kind of money that flows into the economy that we might otherwise have. So those are the major areas that I just wanted to bring. I think 22 years of experience. I will say that I am up against an incumbent who has been, from all intents and purposes and all accounts, has been a good constituency MP. However, he is a representative of a party that has allowed our economy the free fall, and we're coming off the financial cliff. And that's the reason why I would ask that people vote for me and consider me when you go to the polls. Even those people who have indicated that they are strong advocates of the other team, my question to them is, do you consider yourself to be better off now than you were before. And if not, then certainly consider us as an option.
Okay. Michael Bragman, I see your question, and we're going to get into that along with some restorative justice issues after we talk about the economy, mainly because that seems to be at the top of everyone's mind right now. I don't know, Pat, I guess you could probably deal with this. We've had 700 plus jobs lost at the Fairmont Southampton. The Chamber of Commerce has reported nearly 50 retail businesses have closed. A.S. Cooper has gone into receivership. People are taking up to 25%. I mean, I've heard people take up to 25% pay cuts. They've had furlough weeks and or reduced working hours. What specific plans does the OBA have to guide Bermuda to economic recovery for over the next 5 years?
Okay, let's just say that, there is nothing that was more painful to us than the acknowledgement that Southampton Princess was closing down with the loss of 700 jobs. Those people have to work somewhere. But if you reflect back to the administration under the OBA, in which we were able to bring on board the St. Regis Hotel. So it is quite possible and conceivable that some of those people, because that hotel is going to be finishing, it's going to be coming online. It is quite likely that some of those people who will have lost their jobs at Southampton Princess will now be able to be absorbed in the St. Regis. That is part of the foresight, and that is part of the ability of the OBA that we've exemplified how to bring investment into the country. In the absence of that investment, there's no telling what those people would have been able to do. Those, unfortunate people who were who will have lost their jobs as a result of the closure. In respect of the retail stores closing down, I think that it is also reflective of the lack of confidence that people have had in the Byrne administration, because we have not had inward investment. Nobody wants to come in and you find that one day you're doing something and the next day you're doing something completely different, that you're giving away the shop, that you're giving away money to friends and family. $1.2 million coming out of the public coffers to pay off something that was deemed to be an insider benefit that the average other person in that same industry did not have. This recent $800,000 that we've seen that has gone to a promoter that without accountability. These are the kinds of things that have helped to lessen the confidence that people have had in this country and in this administration. What we intend to do, it's painful for people to say that they have to take 25% pay cuts and to have to take further furlough days, especially in the light of the fact that taking those pay cuts is against the backdrop of increase in the cost of living caused by prohibitive taxes and charges that people have to pay under this Byrne administration. So what we need to do is to have a look at, and we've committed to in our platform, to having a look at what it is that people are facing in terms of taxes. They have foreign purchase tax, which has gone up, out the window. They have, additional land taxes. They have, there are just taxes that people have paid, are required to pay, and put that with 25% pay cut. And one has to question, how are we going to manage as a country and as a people?
Yeah, just I heard you talk about it, but I didn't hear any specific solutions, and maybe I wasn't listening properly. What specifically will you do to change that to help stir the economy?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to do is to reaffirm the confidence in Bermuda, because it's that inward investment that is going to keep us afloat, and it's that inward investment that will help to buoy the economy in order that people will be able to have better opportunities. The leader spoke a few moments ago in terms of bringing more people on board. We need to ensure that there is money that's coming into the economy. We have to be able to stimulate the growth. And that is what we are attempting to do by firstly ensuring that we reinstate the confidence. Because in the absence of that confidence, you're not going to get the investment, and we will be on the short end of the stick in respect of how we are able to bring our people out of this this morass that we are presently experiencing.
So reinstating the confidence is the backbone of your plan?
That is a part of our plan. Reinstating confidence so that we can get the inward investment, so that people even locally are able to invest in the economy. People right now are not even doing the basic things that they might normally have done, such as their own home renovations and things like that, because they don't know what tomorrow will bring. And the costs have become prohibitive. So we have to be able to look at that to make sure that people are confident that there is a plan going forward to ensure that there is money flowing in, and it has to come from all sectors. We cannot rely only on the international business sector to help to keep our economy alive. We have to make sure that we have everybody contributing, and it is the confidence that is the starting point, and that is the basis of our plan.
Now, Ben, I know you wanted to jump in, especially on the retail sector. What do you see as some solutions for our local businesses?
So the first thing for me is, I've been speaking to a lot of people in the retail sector. I brought it up in the House of Assembly during the last session, and the response that I received was that retail is dead. So with 3,000 Bermudian jobs in the retail sector, to hear that the government's answer to that is that retail is dead means that obviously they're going to have some kind of solution for the 3,000 jobs that are going to be lost within retail. In that discussion, it moved on to the fact that they needed to figure out ways of catching up with the world and becoming better with online. And the problem with that is that Bermudian retailers are having to compete with outside competitors. So if you look at what's happening in Bermuda when it comes to Amazon and other outside retailers that do not have to pay the same costs that Bermudians have to pay. So if you're an entrepreneur and you open up a business and you're having to pay the rent and you're having to pay the electricity bill and the payroll tax and every other tax and fee that goes along with opening up a business, plus the fact that it takes a really long time to actually start a business in Bermuda. So by the time they've gone through all of those hoops, that product that is on their shelf has a cost that is not the same as the one that has that convenient, I'm going to press a button to get it from overseas. We have to spend some time looking at what policy can we put in place to make sure that we are protecting the retail sector and the jobs in the retail sector, the same way that we protect jobs that are in construction. You know, if we came up with some kind of concept that said that you could build an entire house outside of Bermuda and then bring it here and drop it off, everybody in Bermuda would lose their mind because of all the jobs that would be knocked out. But that same thing is happening to retail now. So we have to come up with a way of making sure that not only are we protecting them, but we're also going to be encouraging entrepreneurs to get into that sector because those jobs are Bermudian jobs.
Right. Anita King has asked a question. Can anyone address the outsourcing of jobs? And I know, like, especially since the pandemic and COVID, everyone went to remote working, and then some of those jobs can be done anywhere in the world. What can we do to fix this situation?
I'm not sure exactly. What can we do to fix the fact that jobs are being outsourced? Is that what you're saying? Or
yeah, especially with remote working, any people don't have to be at the physical location anymore, and some companies are just finding it easier to leave their workers at home, wherever that may be.
Yeah. So Don, I'm going to say that I believe that is probably the subject that is going to have the biggest impact on the way the economy moves forward. We are going to have to focus on what this change from the pandemic has had on the way the economy works. Because people are working from home, it means that they're not in the city, which means that now potentially some of those businesses are not renting the space that they were renting. It also means that all of the support system that happens in the city, the restaurant industries, the stationary supplies, all of those things are now shifting as well because people are working from home. We are going to have to find a way to encourage people to come back to work. Bermuda is a safe jurisdiction. So I understand if you come from a country outside of Bermuda and you're setting up here the way our leader was explaining, that's somebody that's coming here because where they normally are set up is not a safe jurisdiction. Where we are a safe jurisdiction, which means that we need to start to encourage our people to get back to work so that we can start to revitalize the city and make sure that we're protecting all those jobs.
Okay. Now, I'm going to fast food this question. So in 45 seconds, how does your plan to revitalize the economy differ between the other two parties?
Well, our plan really at the end of the day, if you take a look at the government's plan, it's a lot of giveaways, but they've talked nowhere about how they are going to stabilize the country. You first have to stop the bleeding, and that's what we're talking about. Have to look at the things that are causing the challenges that we are having. And when we talk about retail has a challenge with cash flow. That means that we don't have enough people spending within the island. And then the other side of the coin is we now need to look at how we can accommodate the diversification of our economy, moving into a new digital world. We have land, we have sea, we've got our ocean, and we've got space. Maybe with the space, we should be looking at an Elon Musk who comes to Bermuda. We know that we are a key point in communication with these private firms who are sending rockets into space. These are the kinds of things that we need to look at. We need to be looking big. We need to be looking at land when it comes to horticultural and issues and going greener, aquaponics, vertical farming, and the likes. These things are being done by scientists, students. I've seen this in the States, in Idaho, and several other places in New Jersey, where it's students in a room who are on a computer calculating and adjusting the lighting for the certain flavors of growing food. So we have a huge opportunity for our young people to be bringing that digital world to Bermuda, not just talking about cryptocurrency and and Bitcoin and this kind of a thing that still people have not quite understood. But producing food in a digital world, where it's now graduates from universities doing this kind of thing, that's something new that needs to come to Bermuda, and it benefits us because we can grow more of our food. And there's other opportunities when it comes to the sea. We mentioned in our platform about a fisheries center. We believe that there's great opportunity there for us to be taking advantage of our ocean and possibly even fish farming, whether it be for mussels and the likes. We can do these things. What government now needs to do is enable it to happen, make the infrastructure, create the infrastructure for it to happen. This whole idea of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, getting banks, these are long-term things. We need a fix now. We need to get people back to work now. And what we are looking at and saying is stop the bleeding, first of all. Look at what the industries need in order to shore them up. And Pat has already said it. The key issue for Bermuda right now is confidence. When you sit down with an investor, the first thing he asks is this: what is your political climate like? And that's where we run into trouble immediately. Now, I've had conversations with the premier and said, listen, let's go to Hong Kong together. Let's get some of that business that I know is available to us. It'll bring millions of dollars to the taxpayer here that they can live off of. But we haven't done that. But I made the call. Let's do this together, and we can eliminate the first question they're going to ask is there tension as far as politics is concerned? We can't have investors looking at us and saying, this is all about race baiting. We don't want to be there. The confidence is extremely low. Build the economy first and getting confidence.
I want to get back to Michael's question. Why is proposed cannabis policy so vague? I mean, I see you have a restorative justice as part of your platform, and we'll get into some of those points as well. But we'll start with the cannabis question.
What I would say is the government started to have a discussion about cannabis. I believe that cannabis is a subject that we have to get as much information as possible before a decision is made. And the reason for that is because once you go down that road, you have to understand all of the impacts. On one hand, you get excited because of the potential of what it means to the economy. But as you dig a little deeper with the other jurisdictions that have gotten involved with it, you realize that a lot of the money that they're bringing in revenue, they're having to spend when they're dealing with the regulation, when they're dealing with enforcement, where they're dealing with issues that happen as a consequence of having cannabis openly widespread in a country. So this isn't me saying we are 100% against or 100% for. This is, we need to make sure that we have done all our due diligence before that kind of decision is brought forward. And I don't think that we can do this in a vacuum. It has to be done with the understanding of the entire population, because this is a decision that will affect everybody, not just some people.
Yeah, one of the other parts of that, I just want to say, the issue is with the legislation being presented right now, it does not address the main issue, and that is keeping people off of the stop list.
Correct.
And that's why we are recommending this restorative justice that you want to go into, because we have to prevent people that find themselves in the unfortunate circumstance of being caught with a small amount of cannabis, having been put on the stop list. The whole point of the legislation from the very beginning, whether it was PLP or OBA, while we were looking at it, was how do we prevent our people from getting on this stop list? There's been way too many historically who have been put on it who should not be on it.
Right.
And the restorative justice part is a part of that.
Yeah.
And really, the program that was put forward originally by the government was commercial cannabis, right? It was really just figuring out a way for a small portion of the population to make a bunch of money, which has never been, people that have been pushing for cannabis reform and for legalization of cannabis. That was never the point coming from that group. When you talk about an opportunity for multiple people to be involved, and for maybe people that have been, kept out of society because they were dealing with cannabis, for them to get involved, that plan that was put forward was never going to actually help that group. Yeah. This plan was only going to work for the group that had money already. As I explained to you earlier, when you're setting up business in Bermuda, there's so many hurdles for you to go through. So to think that you're going to set up, a cannabis industry in Bermuda, and it's not going to get taken over by, the real commercial, which is the people that actually have money prior to the legislation being put in place, would be us being naive. We have to figure out a way that if we're going to do this, it is going to be in the right way, and it will have the impact that we say that we are trying to give an impact. It's the same thing for me. When you say, oh, we're going to put a sugar tax in place because we're going to cut down on what we're doing with diabetes, and then you just take the revenue for that and you dump it in the pile, and you don't help any of our population when it comes to healthy living and healthy eating, we can't just keep making those things, right? With just lip service. If you're going to do it, you need to make sure that you've looked at every angle so that when it comes out, what the purpose of the legislation is what you're actually getting.
Yeah, I know, I want to move on from this, but I know, like in the sports world with the World Anti-Doping Association, that there's an impact on our athletes as well. But just to summarize your position, it's that you're going to be studying it and trying to find the best way forward.
Yes.
Okay. The Black Lives Matter movement saw more than 7,000 people take to the streets of Hamilton. The Social Justice Bermuda group, that they didn't organize it, but they were doing protests before that as well, put out a platform with economic equality as one of its points that would like to see Bermuda achieve. How will the OBA promote the diversification of business ownership and help Bermudians earn a livable wage?
Okay, firstly, okay.
Go ahead, Pat.
All right. What's important here is that we ensure that our people are trained in the appropriate areas for which there is demand. It's fine to, and we may have to repurpose excuse me, we may have to retrain and repurpose our people in certain areas so that there is an ability to compete, that they will have the opportunity to find meaningful employment, that they can begin to create wealth for themselves and their family, and that they will be able to have economic success. So some of the things that we've talked about is enhancing the circulation of cash flow. We want to increase loans available to small businesses. Now, it might be said that, yes, this is happening now through the BEDC, and yes, we agree with that. But it's something that needs to be perpetuated because I think it's important for opportunity to be there, for entrepreneurial opportunity. Economic success comes one step at a time. It's not going to be something that will be automatically, you speak the word and automatically it's coming into existence. It really has to be done, and it has to be measured in terms of how we are going to do it. The one thing we also have to do, and I just want to reflect back on the prior question, and that is we don't want to feel as though we can build another pillar of our economy based on the cannabis trade. I think that we have to do better for our people. We have to make sure that we don't have the social the outcomes from a negative social perspective, and we need to make sure that we are putting our resources and money in the right places. So we want to make sure that people are at the stage where they can actually come off of financial assistance by beginning to help themselves. All of this comes with the business confidence of which I spoke earlier, and that meaning that once we have new industry coming into the country, and then we can make sure that there's more money that is flowing. I heard you mention earlier, Don, in respect of America's Cup, and it's something that a lot of people will, effectively discount in terms of the value that it had brought. If we can have another event similar to that, that is going to dump a lot of money into our economy, given that we are deemed to be a safer jurisdiction, we obviously have to keep and maintain the health constraints that we have to make sure that we remain a positive and healthy community. But if we can bring events such as that, it was interesting that having poo-pooed the America's Cup, the then PLP government, the new Minister of Tourism, was over in Monte Carlo trying to encourage those same people that he had insulted during the America's Cup, saying that we were only putting on an event for rich white people, that he's going to try to encourage them to come to Bermuda. So, what we have to do is to stop being disingenuous in the political spectrum and to recognize that it is the entirety of Bermuda that is impacted by the decisions that we make. And when we start speaking negatively about something that has actually helped our people, then I think that we need to think twice. Because, if you say to somebody that I don't want you here, and then you go back and say, well, please come, those are mixed messages. And I think that people will ultimately take their money and go elsewhere. And the suffering that will come as a result of it is because our people will not have those job opportunities, will not have that economic opportunity. So we have to be ever mindful of how we speak in terms of what we are putting forward to have people have that confidence of which I spoke, to come into Bermuda and to be able to make those decisions that this is the place for them to be.
The part of the thing is, like, I know a lot of people miss this, but like from the America's Cup, I believe it was just over 40% of that $300 million was from the fact of those people who are working on the America's Cup, the sailors and their families and things, put into the economy by just living here. And we can see the same sort of thing happening now with the Bermuda digital certificate. I was trying to do some ballpark figures on how much each of those were worth to the economy. I think we're approaching close to 200 people now, and at the bare minimum, they're worth $130,000 for each one, and going up to, based on the 2013 household survey, to $222,000 for families coming and spending their money here.
Right. So Don, I just want to piggyback off of something. So first of all, originally when you asked the question to our leader about what the OBA should have done differently, when you mentioned all of those great things that we were doing, I think the answer is that our PR needed to be better. PLP has done a really good job of making things that are actually really positive and great for the country and made them negative, and made the population believe that they're negative. So I'm going to use the America's Cup as an example. As somebody who has attended World Championships and Olympic Games and Commonwealth Games, I can tell you that Bermuda put on a world-class event. It was the same as being at any of these other world-class events. At the same time, I can also tell you that I saw our people involved, working. If you looked at the actual event site, if you looked at our young people that were participating in the sailing competition, and the pride of their parents, the pride of the Bermudians that were going out to watch them participate at that level, this was an opportunity for Bermuda to not only shine on the world stage, which we did, and we did really well, but it also was an opportunity for Bermudians to remember that we were a hospitality site, and we were a community that knew how to take care of our guests. And we did an amazing job of it. But instead, it's been put aside like it was the most negative thing that's ever happened. And that's the danger when you just use politics instead of what's actually important for your people. If we did a better job of pushing back to say, you know what, this is a really positive thing. So when you call it a billionaire's boat race and say that it was only for white people, I bet the people that were renting their houses during that America's Cup, I bet you that's not the way they thought. I bet Woody's, when they were packed day after day after day, I bet you they didn't think that it was only for white people. The problem is, when we do that just for political gain, we are hurting our country. So we follow that on, and the present government brings in the PGA tournament. Well, imagine if we had just matched all over it and said, this is the worst thing because it's a bunch of millionaire white guys playing golf. Well, it doesn't make any sense, because we know that what we have to do is encourage investment from outside of the country. But on top of that, we actually have people that have been in Bermuda for 20-something years, and they are the ones that we could have invest in our country. Well, we've made them feel that they're not welcome, and we've made them feel that because you maybe not look like somebody else, that we don't want you here. But you know what? We do want your money. That can't be the way that we do business.
Right. Getting back to your restorative justice program, you've mentioned criminal justice as needing some reform, especially in the area of mental health. I've sat in court quite a bit, and I see a lot of sad cases, unfortunately, come through where people aren't getting the help that they probably need. How would you reform that?
So, Don, the first thing I'm going to say to you is Bermuda needs to look at the beginning, the root. So many times we actually only focus on what happens once it's already gone bad. We've already come off the tracks, and now we are dealing with that person that's in court, and then that person that's ending up at Westgate, and they're on the wrong side of this. But right from the beginning, we need to be making sure that we are focused on what happens to our young people before they even get into primary schools, so that we know if they have an issue, we're addressing it. Because when you get to the end result and you start to test that group, you understand that a high percentage of the people that are in Westgate right now actually had an issue that was either unresolved from when they were younger, or they had a learning disorder or learning disability that was not addressed. And that is the reason that they've ended up there. So we need to make sure, and this is what we put in our platform, that we are going to connect all of the different agencies so that everybody is working together so that we can get this right. Because we need to understand that the people in the beginning, and then trying, where possible, to not put somebody into Westgate, but to actually give them a second opportunity, and then try to correct by giving the tools for them to change their behavior. And part of that is going to be the mental health issue. We have a significant mental health issue which ends up being criminal, and then that person ends up in Westgate. Probably not where they should have been if they had been able to get the treatment that they were supposed to get. If you look at what happened during shelter in place, we end up cleaning up a group of people that were up at the shelter at Cedar Bridge. Minister Keynes gave me the opportunity to tour that facility with him, and I watched a group of people that over a 5-week period had cleaned up their lives because they were finally getting the support that the country wasn't giving them.
Right.
You know what happened? We closed that facility, and all those people are back on the street, and none of them are getting the support that we were giving them during that period. It's not good enough. We have to figure out a way to take care of our people at all levels, from the beginning all the way through this process.
Okay. You mentioned education, and I want to jump back into that because I think that's one of the differences between the three parties. You want an independent education authority. The FDM want school vouchers, and we've already seen the PLP's platform on reforming the school system and getting rid of the middle schools. Why do you feel like the independent education authority is the best way to go?
Well, let me respond to that. Sorry.
No,
Because having an independent education authority takes the politics out of education. I think that we have seen too frequently that the systems change based on the flavor of the month. It is unfair to our children in order to have their excellence being promoted. And I think that as long as we have politicians who are arranging policies and doing things, and you have the ministry as it operates, making decisions that are not necessarily in the best interest of our children, then our children are the ones who are going to fail as a result. I believe that having an independent authority, somebody outside of the political spectrum, somebody who's a team of people who are able to look at how do we compare internationally, how do we compare with the competition that our children are going to be up against? How are we preparing them to account for their own excellence? How are we ensuring that our teaching staff are constantly on the cutting edge of perfection? That's what we need. And I think that to have politicians continue to be calling the shots in that respect, I don't believe it's ideal. I don't believe that we're having the best outcome for our young people. And I think that ultimately that is what we want to do. We want to ensure that going forward, that our young people have the best possible opportunity. We don't want to say that our children have to be in private school or our children have to go abroad in order to get something that gives them worldwide parity. I think that we need to be able to have an outside authority looking at how we can enhance the offerings to our young people to ensure that their lives are improved as a result of their educational experience.
So, Don, just piggybacking off of that, the first thing that we have to do is stop being so negative publicly about our school system. If you're a young person or you're a teacher that's working in the system right now, and every week you hear how the system is failing, children are failing, I'm going to tell you right from the beginning, you set them up to fail because you've told them how negative it is. The environment you're in doesn't work. And now, self-fulfilling prophecy, that's the way it's going to be. Now, yes, politics has been a problem in the education system for a really long time, and that is why that is our focal point. But in talking to a lot of public school teachers over the last few weeks leading up to this election, I believe that a lot of the answers that we need, the teachers have. Remember that our teachers are playing multiple roles right now. They're mother, they are father, they're nurse, they're making sure that the kids are fed, they're covering all of these bases while they are also, on top of that, having to pay out of their own pocket for their supplies. So when you look at that and then you say, oh, well, we've reduced their wage by 10%, I'm going to say that the teachers in Bermuda are an essential service. If we expect for the future to be different, then we have to understand that the people that would be driving that future will be the ones that are standing up in front of our children and setting the example and being the mentors and spending the extra time, because we've had issues with the way our families are broken down.
Okay.
Parents not being accountable all the time the way they need to be. The teachers are having to fill that role. So we need to support them in every way that we can and get the politics out of it.
All right. Quickly, as we're running out of time here, you've got two ideas in your platform that have generated some buzz. One is the idea of holding a reformation of making St. David's a parish. The other one is the repeal of the sugar tax. Let's start with making St. David's a parish. The main complaint from the public seems to be the cost of holding a reformation while we're dealing with this economic downturn, and they don't see any benefit to doing that.
Yeah, we're not saying that we need to do it immediately. What we are saying is that we're now going to look at it in its entirety, and we're going to look at it a lot closer as to how we can go about making this happen. We'll continue to campaign with the people of St. David's and Bermuda as a whole for the appetite for something like this here. St. David's has always been a very unique place and a major part of our history. I'm not sure what that was, but a major part of our history. And it would be great to highlight the fact of how St. David's has made helped make Bermuda what it is today. So we're not looking to spend the money. As far as that is concerned, we don't even know what that cost might be, but we are going to entertain number 10 Downey Street, look at the Constitution, and look at how that is possible to be made happen. It's been talked about for a long time. Yes, of course, I'm from St. David's, and I do have a personal interest in something like that because I've heard it all my life. That would be great for something like that to happen. But we want to spend some time investigating how it can be made happen.
Now you've seen a lot of kudos over repealing the sugar tax. It seems very popular amongst the public. Why do you think this is necessary?
Well, let's just
Yeah.
say that the impact of having the sugar tax it has never fulfilled the purpose for which it was stated to have been intended. It was stated that the sugar tax was going to be effectively ring fenced so that we could have proper education, that we could have that it would go into health care, that we would have better outcomes in our health care. We have a very serious diabetes problem in Bermuda, and the idea of the present government was that if they brought in a sugar tax, it would help to promote healthier choices. What has happened with the sugar tax is that because it was not clearly defined at the outset, what has happened is that the costs, the additional taxes, happens to have permeated across the entirety of the grocery spectrum. So every single item virtually has been increased in some way, shape, or form because there may be some element of sugar. And I know that the government did go back and try to say, well, let's carve out this piece, let's carve out that piece. Instead of putting us through that level of it just doesn't make sense. It's frustrating to the grocers, it's frustrating to the consumers, and what people have seen is that their grocery bills, where they might have paid before $200 a week for groceries, they're now paying $275 a week for the same basket of goods and services. And does it say that as the intent was, that if something is more expensive, then you will utilize the ability to buy more health, to make more healthy choices? That doesn't necessarily work. If somebody wants a pound of candy, they want a pound of candy. And if that pound of candy is going to cost them $25, they're going to spend the $25, and they're not going to spend $5 on carrots if that's not what they want. We have to be realistic and recognize that we cannot legislate behavior. And what we can do is to educate from a perspective of reminding people, have a campaign to say that if you do this, then this could be the outcome. If you consume too much of something that is not healthy, then it's going to impact how you will be able to respond, how your body responds in the long term. That's what we needed to do. We did not need to have more money being charged to people, and it ends up going across the board, whereas every cost of import, and add that to the additional foreign currency purchase tax, which made things absolutely 10 times worse. So we're taxing. And while that money for the sugar tax may have been intended to go into a specific ring-fenced educational and health outcome, it has not. It has gone into the consolidated fund, and it's just kind of mixed and mingled with everything else. And we are no better off than we were before the sugar tax, with the exception that now the only thing that's improved is the cost that we have to pay. That's the only thing that's gone north, is the cost that we have to pay for in the grocery stores. And I think that people are they recognize that it is difficult for them to make ends meet. It's difficult for people to feed their children, and it is difficult for them to make their dollar stretch. There's too much month left over at the end of the money. So to repeal the sugar tax is going to give the Bermudian people a little bit extra money in their pockets, and it will have the ability to ensure that they are able to make choices that are better for their full economic spectrum within their families. What's also going to be that we will be looking at very carefully is to ensure that with the repeal of the sugar tax, it is not meant to be a windfall for grocers. We have to make sure that with the repeal of the sugar tax, that the costs are reduced, and as a result, the cost of buying things to the average person in the street, the Mr. and Mrs. Public, those costs have to be reduced. So it's not going to be that you paid $10 for your Country Time lemonade last week, and we're taking away the sugar tax, so therefore, we're going to charge you $10 because that's what you paid. No, it's going to be that if the cost of that Country Time lemonade was going to be $6 pre-sugar tax, then it's going to be $6 post-sugar tax. That's the idea of making sure that those savings are passed on to the consumer. And without that, then the whole thing will have failed, because what we've seen is that by implementing the sugar tax, it's been indiscriminately used because there was not clarity from the outset.
Okay. There was so much more on your platform I wanted to get to today. We didn't even talk about healthcare, although a little bit with the sugar tax and mental health. But I would encourage everyone to go to oba.bm/platform and take a look and familiarize yourself with what the party's platform is before you go vote on Thursday. And again, encouraging everyone to go vote on Thursday, but please be an informed voter and look at all three parties so that you know what the differences are. Opposition leader, I'll let you get the final word for the OBA before we sign off.
Certainly. October 1st is this Thursday, Bermuda.
Okay.
And Bermuda certainly is living at a time when we are finding it difficult to make ends meet. The One Bermuda Alliance has committed itself, but not only an economic commitment but to a social commitment to Bermuda, that we will bring about the reform that is necessary to bring about a better life for every single Bermudian. Whether you're jobless, whether you have one job and seeking out a second job to make ends meet, or whether you have a good paying job and you've been fortunate enough to have that throughout this COVID-19 process and time. We are everyone. That's why we are called the One Bermuda Alliance. This is about bringing Bermuda together. Our focus is all about you and doing what is best for you, Bermuda. So we hope that you have the opportunity to take a look at our platform, because it truly speaks to how we will bring about a better Bermuda for all Bermudians. Thank you for the time that you've given us. Certainly, we've not gone into everything that we would like to have talked about reducing the cost of healthcare and the likes, but it is in our platform, as has already been stated. We are thankful and humbled by the support that we've had as we've been out canvassing and walking the streets of Bermuda, listening to you. We look forward to October the 1st, where you vote for the One Bermuda Alliance for Better Bermuda.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Pat Gordon Pamplin and Ben Smith, and Opposition Leader Craig Cannonier. I'm your host for Burn News, News and Views, Don Burgess, and we'll be back at 4 o'clock with some of the candidates from the FDM. Hope you'll tune in then and to listen. Again, as always, have a beautiful day.